91.3 FM, Dstv, channel 92 on Topstar, and live on Facebook.
The views expressed on this program are not the views of Power FM or the presenter.
Voice of the People is a dynamic and interactive radio phone-in show that gives listeners a platform to voice their opinions on current affairs, social issues, and community concerns. With engaging discussions, expert insights, real-time audience participation. Voice of the People.
Welcome to today's edition of Voice of the People, right here on the Power Breakfast on Power 91.3 FM. You can be part of the conversation by going through to our socials, or you can also come through, and we'll be opening the phone lines later on the show right here on the Power Breakfast on Voice of the People. We are joined in the studio by John Chipandwe, who is a Public Relations Coordinator for the Food Reserve Agency. Over the past crop marketing season, the FRA recorded one of the highest maize purchases in the country's history, positioning itself as a key stabilizer of both farmer livelihoods and national grain reserves. At the same time, the agency has faced growing public scrutiny over payment delays, storage capacity, logistics challenges, and concerns raised by farmers across the country, especially small-scale and vulnerable producers. Now, these developments have sparked nationwide conversations, questions, and expectations. Now, to help us unpack the facts and respond to public concerns and understand the way forward, we are joined in the studio by Mr. John Chipandwe. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Grace. Good morning to you, and good morning to our listeners as well as viewers.
Okay, that is wonderful. Now, getting right into the conversation that I think has been at the center for the last couple of days, that is with farmer payments. We have heard how they've been quite, I would say, hurt to some extent, saying you've told us you've paid out the money, but yet we're camping at banks. Now, FRA reports that 99% of farmers have been paid for maize deliveries, with delays attributed to data verification issues. Now, how are you improving data quality at source to ensure that payments are prompt, but also are accurate in future seasons?
Okay, thank you so much, Shekinah, for that question. Indeed, like you have put it, we have actually paid. According to us as FRA, we have paid all farmers countrywide. Why am I saying we have paid all the farmers countrywide? It's because all the monies that we were owing farmers that supplied maize as well as paddy rice during the 2025 crop marketing season was actually disbursed to all the banks that are required to pay the farmers. So the monies for the farmers are right now in the banks, which is the second last process of paying the farmers, because the banks that we have engaged are responsible for giving out the funds to the actual farmers countrywide. So as we speak, that 1% that we are talking about is for the very few farmers who were not very anxious to go and collect their funds from the banks. So as was directed by government, yes, of course, we were given all the funds by the 10th of last month, if you remember, and then immediately we were able to release all the funds. And if you are following our updates, we actually did also hold a press briefing where we officially announced that all the funds were dispersed to the farmers countrywide, and then we urged all the eligible farmers to start going to the banks for them to get their funds. So how did we quickly clear the balance? We decided to introduce 3 payment options, knowing how urgent the funds were for the farmers. So we started by introducing a mobile payment system where farmers were requested to submit their mobile money numbers or accounts, and we were able to quickly validate those numbers with the mobile network providers, after which payments would then be forwarded to farmers on the same accounts. Then secondly, we also started engaging farmers to quickly give us their bank details. Those that have bank details, they were requested to submit to FRA offices countrywide, and then the details would be moved on to the banks so that the transfers could be done. Then the third option, which is the most preferred by the farmers, was to pay them over the bank counter payments. So this is where it's a standard practice that we have been using for years and years, where farmers go to the bank, they present their documents, and then they are paid over the counter. So that was a third option. So using these three options, farmers were now able to choose and quickly access their funds. And as we continue carrying out this process, we are actually finalizing the payments with a few farmers getting paid right now. So that is where we are. Of course, you may note that we were taking a bit of time to validate the numbers because some of the numbers for the farmers were different. The numbers they are using for their ordinary calls are not the same numbers that they use for their mobile money accounts. So we needed them to give us those numbers, after which we would surrender them to the owners for them to confirm and indicate that indeed these are owned by these farmers. And then payments were done. And I think by now most of the farmers have gotten paid.
Okay, so then what specific technical, or rather if I should say administrative steps are being taken by FRA to ensure that farmers with incomplete or even maybe incorrect registration details are not disadvantaged from receiving their payments?
Okay, so that's a very good question, Shekinah, because when we hear a farmer complaining that he hasn't gotten paid, the blame goes immediately to FRA. No, FRA hasn't paid. No, FRA hasn't released the funds for the farmers. That's not the case. Delays are caused by, payment delays are actually caused by, I can say, three main factors. One, the technical aspect of the paying process. Secondly, the farmers also are to blame, because when we give them documentation to fill in, we are human. At times we err by including a wrong number or missing out a number on either the phone number or the NRC number. So those issues now, when they arise at the payment process, there's no way a bank can give out monies to a farmer holding on to a document which does not bear or carry the correct numbers as indicated on the other documents. Mind you, when a farmer delivers maize to a satellite depot in the bush where we meet them to buy the stock, they are given a receipt. That receipt is supposed to be presented to the bank together with the NRC. So in an event where we have a farmer presenting a receipt and the NRC, and then the two documents are not talking to each other 100%, the bank won't pay. Instead, they'll tell the farmer to go back to FRA, and then once the farmer presents himself or herself, we'll be able to correct those details and then write a letter now to the bank authorizing the bank to do the payment. So that also affects the payment, the payments to farmers. It kind of delays that process. Then thirdly, the bank also plays a role. It also contributes at times in delaying the payments to the farmers. You know, majority of our farmers prefer to get paid in cash over the counter. And it's not always that you find money is sitting at the bank for the bank to disperse to the farmer. No. At times, the banks may run out of liquid cash, and then they will need time to mobilize that cash and send it to wherever it is needed for the farmer payment. So you see, these are scenarios that contribute to the delayed payment. But when we hear those complaints, all the blame will be on FRA. No, it's FRA which hasn't released funds. It's FRA that didn't do the accurate documentation, this and that. But these are the main scenarios that actually greatly contribute to the delayed payment of farmers. So administratively, yes, when we have a report of those incidences, we quickly intervene to see how we can expedite the payment process for the farmer to get paid. Like for last year, due to the agency of the funds, we did sit down with banks and we discussed on how the funds can be expedited, you know, in terms of distribution and also actual release to the farmers. And then we came up with very good strategic interventions. where we agreed that since farmers have been slightly delayed, there's need for us to change the way we are operating. Okay? Banks did agree that they would start operating on Saturdays and Sundays. So we did agree, and banks were operating on Saturdays and Sundays from 8 hours up to 17 hours. And then during Mondays to Fridays, banks continued operating from 8 hours to 17 hours, specifically to pay farmers. What else was agreed? Banks also brought on board the use of cash in transit vans, which were going out now into satellite depots where they would meet farmers and pay them cash, you know. So that was another option. And then with these interventions brought on board, we were able to quickly attend to as many farmers as possible. In addition, when farmers were going to the branches, looking at the crowds that were gathering there, the banks also decided to increase the number of counters or tellers attending to farmers. So in other branches, you would find that maybe they had 5 counters specifically dedicated to the payment of farmers. In others, even the same vans that were going out into the rural areas, they were also positioned outside just to supplement the payment, other payment methods, to ensure that timely release of funds to the farmers is done. And here we are. It's almost done now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, there are reports that vulnerable groups such as persons, differently abled persons, and have been disproportionately affected by delayed payments due to structural barriers. Mm-hmm. So what would you say that are the policies or safeguards is FRA putting in place to protect the most vulnerable farmers in future?
Okay, so just a clarification on your question. Mm-hmm. The first part, you referred to structural barriers.
Yes, yes.
Which are those barriers that you are referring to before I can proceed to answer?
Okay, so persons living with disabilities, yes, they were complaining to say they are now grouped in together with just everyone else. They were asking if maybe they can be given, I would say, a leeway so that they are paid faster as well.
Okay.
Is there a structured policy like that?
That's a good one. You know, these are differently abled people. It's a special category of farmers.
Yes.
We have special procedures for this group of farmers. Mm-hmm. The disabled, the pregnant women, the elderly. We have special arrangements for them. When they visit our depots, rule number 1, I think wherever you go, anywhere for a service, if you are elderly, if you're a senior citizen, you won't be allowed to stand in a queue. You'll be given special treatment, and you'll be, once noticed, you'll be told to go in the front so that you are quickly attended to and off you go. Similarly, the pregnant women, wherever they go, they'll be given that special treatment. So there's no way us as FRA can decide to treat them in a different manner, no. When they visit our depots, I'll tell you for a fact that we do follow those procedures. Any pregnant woman that comes, any elderly citizen that comes to our depot, any differently abled farmer, we tell them to quickly go in front, they are attended to, and off they go. Mm-hmm. So this does not only apply when we are buying maize, no. Remember that FRA is a strategic institution. Yes. One, by law, we are required to provide market access for farmers in rural areas. Then secondly, when we have emergency situations at national level or at community level, we are required again by law to step in and supply critical food for their residents. I'm sure you are aware of programs, a program that we call a community sales program. That's where we are required by law to sell maize to the vulnerable communities countrywide when need arises. So even during those times, when we have specially groups of people in these categories, we always make sure that we give them a priority. Wherever they are, whenever they come, they are told to go in front, they are attended, then they go. But you know, a human being is a very complex being. We also we've recorded experiences where as our senior citizens at times are actually being misused by community members. Why? Because they know that, okay, if we send grandpa to a satellite depot, he won't queue up. If we send grandma to a satellite depot, she won't queue up. So what do? The senior citizen would come, we give them what they need, off they go, and then they maybe community members now will get 100 kwacha, 200 kwacha and say, you go and get on our behalf, because once you go there, you be given express attention. So again, they would come. So now it's up to us now as FRA to balance. This man came just a few minutes ago. Now he's back. Grandpa, you are here again, but we serviced you yesterday. We gave you what you needed a few minutes ago. Why are you here? You do those interrogations. Then the man will say, no, I've been told to come and help another family. So no. We don't work like this. You go back. You got your share, so now it is a 10 for the other category. But those special conditions are available, and we do follow them strictly.
Okay, and you can be part of the conversation on 0979-192-485 or 0955-997-997. We are joined in the studio by John Chipandwe, the Public Relations Coordinator for FRA, as we are here to unpack more with regards to the payment delays, storage capacity, logistic challenges and concerns raised by farmers across the country, especially small-scale and vulnerable farmers as well. So some small-scale farmers objected to certain policies requiring them to deliver a minimum quantity of maize to FRA before accessing input support. So how does FRA balance such conditions with at least equitable access to government programs?
Okay, so that question is talking about, the focus for that question is actually on circular number CM11 of 2024 that was issued by the Ministry of Agriculture.
Okay.
In other words, it's referred to as a bonded agreement between government and farmers that fall under the Farmer Input Support Program, FISIP. Okay,
you just need to hold that part as we do have a caller. Hello, it's you to the Power Breakfast.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, madam.
Good.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you doing yourself?
I'm okay. Thank you.
All right. Tell us your name and where you're calling us from, please.
This is Emmanuel Murita calling you from Chongwe.
All right. Mr. Emmanuel, go ahead with your comment or question, please.
Yes, please. Good morning, our visitor there.
Good morning, Mr. Murita. How is Chongwe?
Thank you. Chongwe is doing fine here. Yeah. I just want to add my contribution on the program of today. Yeah. I would like to appreciate the FRA for their job well done to make sure that all the farmers who supply maize to FRA are paid. The other worrying thing is that these farmers, most of our farmers, because I'm one of the farmers who supplied maize to FRA and have been paid. And the most worrying thing is that these farmers who are complaining to say, no, FRA has late to pay us, they were all over on social media, wherever. Now they have paid and they are quiet. So that is so worrisome. So it is going to be better. These people who were proud to cry, to say the FRA has not paid their money, and none have paid. It is going to be better if they are also all over. They are so loud on social media where they were so crying to say FRA has not paid their money. They were going to be better if there was going to be better if they start appraising the FRA to say they have paid our money this time around. Not to encourage a busy. Because by that time, benzolira benzodandaula kalipo kitaka ndama now abapata ndama zao bali kuti those were crying. So at times ngati vinsibiri bwino, yes, it is true, we can complain. Now if things are okay, better we support where it is due. So as for me, thank you very much FRA for the job well done, and please continue doing like that. For us, we appreciate you. We understand where there were some of the challenges, why we were delayed to be paid our monies, and we understand why this time around we are being paid our monies. We appreciate you for that. The continuous spirit.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming through. You can also be part of the conversations. The number are 0979-192485 or 0955-997-997. We are joined in the studio by the Public Relations Coordinator for the Food Reserve Agency, Mr. John Chipandwe. Maybe you can just give your reaction to that comment.
Thank you, Mr. Muvita, for that feedback. Indeed, I think we need to see more farmers coming out to confirm and inform the public that they have indeed been paid by FRA. So following that feedback from Mr. Muvita, I hope other callers will come in and say the same. So going back to your question, Grace, we were talking about circular number CM 11 of 2024, which required farmers to sell a minimum of 10 by 50 kilogram bags of maize to FRA as a requirement for them to continue benefiting under the FSIP program. So for me, speaking from experience, I would say there was no objection to that circular. Why? Because all the farmers, if not all, then only a few didn't manage to supply to FRA. That circular required all of them, it's a requirement. It was a requirement for all of them to ensure that they play their role in contributing to national food security by selling. It's not a maximum, but only a minimum of 10 bags to FRA as a contribution and as a response to the help that government has been giving to our farmers for years and years. You may be aware that FSIP is a program that started a long time ago. And one key thing that farmers are supposed to do under that program is to grow every year, after which, once they reach a certain level of maturity, they are supposed to graduate from that program and leave space for other farmers to also benefit from that program. But you find that farmers who've been there are still there for years and years. So as a way of them now also responding to that incentive from government, I think it was a wise decision for the government to bring up that circular. And as we speak, last year, you remember that FRA did actually purchase a total of 1.6 million metric tons of maize. In simple terms, that is 33.3 million 50 kg bags of maize. We did manage to buy that stock. Why? Because of actually three main reasons. One, the price for maize last year was the highest in Zambia's history. We were buying a 50 kilogram bag of maize at 340 kwacha per bag. Okay? Then, apart from that, we were also collecting the said 10 by 50 kg bags of maize from each beneficiary under FSIP. Because remember, there was a need for them to bring that maize, failure to which they would not get inputs for the next farming season. So all of them actually did abide to that requirement. Then thirdly, you may be aware that last year when we were opening the marketing season, we did announce that we were going to open 1,480 satellite depots countrywide. But that was increased to over 2,000 satellite depots, meaning that we were closer to farmers, and farmers found it easy to deliver their stock to FRA. One, because we were closer to them. Secondly, because the price also was the best in the country. Then thirdly, the third point as to why we managed to buy that quantity of maize is basically due to the fact that there was a bumper harvest. So maize was actually all over. It was all over, and farmers were able to give us their excess. So even as we buy again the same maize from the farmers, we don't advise that they give us all their harvest, no. Remember that national food security begins where? It begins at domestic or household level. So even as we buy maize, we tell our farmers to say, give us the excess maize. Make sure that before you come to our depot to give us your stock, reserve or keep aside substantial quantities of your harvest for domestic use going forward. Then what we get is the excess. So because of that, we were able to do that. And as in regards to their objection, I don't think they did object to that, because they did abide to that requirement. They were able to give us a stock, and then that allowed them to get inputs for the next farming season. So in terms of how FRA provides equitable access to our farmers. So I'll answer that question in two ways. One, FRA is allowed by law to provide market access to the farmers. So we do that. And we do that with working, of course, hand in hand with other government agencies. So when we are setting up a satellite depot, it's not us as the buyers that decide to say we are going to set up a depot here and there. No, we leave that to the experts, the technocrats who know the communities for farmers. Remember that under Ministry of Agriculture, there is a department for camp extension officers. These are the farmers who are positioned in the rural areas, in the communities of farmers. So those people are critical, and they know where farmers are located. So when it comes to satellite depot identification, we rely on Ministry of Agriculture to guide us. Then we also rely on district agricultural coordinators, the so-called DACOs in short. Then we also bring on board district commissioners. They also play a very critical role, because it's their districts and they know the location of farmers. And then we also move on to the provincial level, where we engage the PACOs to advise. So once they identify the areas, we move in and provide the required resources, and then we provide a market as required by law. So in that manner, we make sure that the access, equitable access to all the stakeholders is granted. So when it comes to FISIP now, that is separately handled by Ministry of Agriculture. Yeah.
Okay. Once again, do remember you can be part of this conversation, especially if you are a farmer, a small-scale farmer even. You can call us up on 0955-997-997 or on 0979-192-485 or on 0961-690-487, as we get to touch on a number of topics this morning, as we're joined in studio by Mr. John Chipandwe, who's the Public Relations Coordinator at FRA. And now, earlier on, you did get to touch on the fact that last year, we had a bumper harvest, and therefore the FRA bought so much from the farmers. Mm-hmm. And so even on social media, and some of the guests we've had in studio have told us how the FRA storage facilities are overwhelmed, as you've received higher than expected maize purchases, therefore now forcing you to improvise stacking methods. What are the long-term investments that are being made to ensure that you expand storage and also protect against post-harvest losses? Because you've heard there's such that happens.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good question. So let me begin by stating that improvising stacking is not done at main holding depots. I think what you are referring to by saying that is the setup that we usually have at our satellite depots. So there's a difference between a satellite depot and a main holding depot. Mm-hmm. A satellite depot is what you find when you go in the bush, where we go as FRA to meet farmers and buy the required crops. So like for last year, you remember that we were buying white maize as well as paddy rice. So we don't buy these crops in the urban areas, but we go in the remotest parts where we meet the farmer and get and buy the crops. So at those sites, yes, we do improvise the stacking, but the improvisation is actually standard. Wherever you go to any satellite depot countrywide, you will find that it's a similar kind of arrangement that we put up, where we put a base, we use either blocks, and then we put logs on top, and then we put a plastic to make sure that the moisture, if at all any, from underground doesn't seep to go to the bags on top. So that is a standard arrangement that we have at satellite depots. And then once we start buying maize at satellite depots, standard practice requires that once we reach a certain number of bags, for example 800 or 1,000 bags, those bags start moving immediately from the satellite depot, now going into the main sheds. Main sheds are located in the urban areas. For example, here in Lusaka, if you go to Chongwe, just as you go towards the end of Chongwe, you see there's a main holding depot to your right. If you are facing the eastern direction, that's a main holding depot. So all the stock now that we buy from the bush comes to that depot for long-term storage. So the improvisation now you're talking about is what we do in the bush. Now, when it comes to storage space, yes, last year we bought 1.6 million metric tons of maize. That was the new stock. Remember that our sheds, our silos, were still holding stock from the previous years, 2024, 2023, and other years. So that now, the 1.6, which was a new stock, had to be moved into the sheds to increase the number of bags added to the previous years. So yes, we did run out of storage space. As FRA, we hold secure storage space of over 1.1 million metric tons. So right now, what we did, looking at what we bought, we decided also to engage the private sector to help us store that maize. And I can tell you that right now we did contract over 600,000 metric tons of storage space where we are keeping the excess maize. So again, keeping that maize is not easy and is not cheap. Maize is a very sensitive commodity. You put it here, you leave it for even just 1 month, you'll find powder in that bag. So as FRA, we are responsible for making sure that the quality and the safety of what we buy is sustained until at a time when the stock is required. So keeping that stock is not easy and it is not cheap. So we do those processes to make sure that the stock is kept in good condition. Coming back to storage space, we have what we call an investment and what we call a storage expansion investment plan for about 5 years. If you have been following our updates, I think last year and the other years, we did indicate that we were sitting below a 1.1 million metric tons of storage space. So 2 years, 3 years ago, we were somewhere around 800, 850. 2024, we were somewhere around 920. But right now, as we speak, we have kept on expanding the storage space in line with our storage expansion plan. So we are working on that plan, and as we speak, if we find time, I think this year we can take the media around so that they see the sheds that we are putting up. Other sheds are being brought down and new ones are being put up. Other silos are being modernized while others are being refurbished. So for example, I'll focus on the silo that we have in Ndola, the one we call Bwana Mkubwa silo. It was just an ordinary silo some years back, but right now it's a state-of-the-art silo, which is able to package maize in 50 kg bags and do the sowing. We don't need manual laborers to come and sew the bags. The same silo has got infrastructure that will pack a bag, sew it, weigh it, and then dispatch it to an appropriate place now for the same bags to be put on a wagon or on a truck in transit to other areas. So those plans are there, and we are working on the same to ensure that we keep on increasing storage space year by year.
And so now, I love that you mentioned the fact that you also engage the private sector when you realize that storage actually is running out. Yeah. So how exactly, going forward, are you ensuring that when it comes to funding and even planning storage capacity upgrades, what role the private sector come in when it comes to private-public partnerships, how they work with the FRA? Okay,
so refurbishments as well as construction of storage space in FRA is done in two ways. One, we have a department that is responsible for doing that. So at certain times when the department is not able to cope up with the pressure, that's when we bring on board now the private sector to help us build or put up new sheds. Like the one that I'm just talking about, the Bonamkuba shed, we actually contracted the private sector to come on board and help us refurbish and modernize the silo. So as we speak right now, that silo is in a different shape and everything is working perfectly. So the private sector, yes, we do engage them, a selected few that meet our requirements to come on board and put up the required sheds countrywide. Yeah.
Now, moving on to another conversation, which is, I would say, strategic planning and resilience. Given recent payment delays of what has been happening with regards to the farmers and also storage pressures, which has been growing, what would you say are the changes that as FRA you are making when it comes to operational planning to better anticipate procurement? Because as we know, we have had good rainfall this season, and we might see a lot more produce. So when it comes to that, what plans do you have for the season ahead?
Okay, so for this year, I'd like to mention first of all that what transpired last year was more of an eye-opener. We were able to draw lessons from the experiences, and going forward, I can confidently state that the planning sessions for this year have already started. Okay, we have already started, and firstly, I would like to mention that one of the things that we are critically looking at is to widen or enhance our payment options. So going forward this year, what we are planning to do is to conduct sensitization campaigns to inform our farmers of the payment options that are going to be available. And then after doing that, we are going to be registering farmers and also validating their details before the crop marketing season commences. Why do we do that? Why do we want to do that? We want to create a database that will be very accurate, so that once we start buying crops, all the details for farmers, all the processes would have been done, and then we just focus on buying stock and paying. Remember that what kind of delayed our payments this time around was due to the fact that we needed to validate certain details for farmers, and we also needed to submit certain details to banks for electronic payments. So that now is going to be done way in advance before the crop marketing season. So that is what we are planning to do. Then when it comes to crop purchases, let me also, I think, take this opportunity to explain that one of the major reasons as to why we slightly delayed to pay farmers was because of the maize purchase target. Remember that during the farming season actually last year, remember that there was a call actually by the president to the nation urging us to grow as much food as possible so that we continue to be secure at national level. So that call actually prompted farmers to grow a lot of maize. And then in addition to that, Ministry of Agriculture also, aligning its activities to the presidential call, did supply farming inputs to farmers right on time. Then now, in addition to those two, God blessed us with a very good weather pattern. So you can see the trend of things. Everything was just falling in line. And then what did we have in the end? A bumper harvest, okay? Then our crop marketing season started. We did announce during a briefing that we would purchase an initial maize purchase target of 543,000 metric tons. We did announce. And in our announcement, we did indicate that was the initial purchase target. Why? Because we were overseeing a possibility or a situation where we would adjust that target in response to what was on the ground, because we were also monitoring the inflow of maize from farmers. So here we are in the crop marketing season. 2-3 weeks into the season, we were able to hit the 543,000 metric tons. Why? Because we offered a very good price. Then thirdly, there was that circular from Ministry of Agriculture. Farmers now, FISIP beneficiaries, were bringing their stock as required by the circular. And then thirdly, like I mentioned, our depots were all over. So in just 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we were able to hit 543,000 metric tons. So we are a public institution funded by government. So what did we do? We engaged our superiors, reported, and we were given guidance to say, okay, we need to continue buying stock. Failure to which the farmers themselves would have suffered. How? They would have, the market for them would have been gone, which is FRA. And then if we had pulled out of the market, they were going to be vulnerable, because the private sector now most likely would have taken advantage of the situation to say, oh, FRA has met its target, therefore these guys are desperate, and then they would have pegged the price of maize at a very lower rate, and then the farmers themselves would have been affected. The second scenario, if we had closed the marketing season after 3-4 weeks, imagine what would have happened to the hundreds of farmers under FISIP who had not yet delivered their 10 by 50 kg bags to FRA, that would have been stranded. And that would have had a ripple effect on their farming activities going forward. So a wise decision was made to say, quite all right, this is what we are looking at, these are the funds. Now, if we do this, the consequences actually would be there. So that was done, and then we continued buying maize. So the implication of that decision now meant that, one, FRA had to continue buying, and then on the other hand, we were busy running up and down trying to mobilize funds for the payment of farmers that were giving us additional stock. Then secondly, it also meant that FRA now had to make sure that once the funds are given to us, quickly disperse the funds to the banks. You remember that, I think you are aware that once we start a crop marketing season, payments actually start immediately. Once a farmer delivers, they are given a receipt, and on that receipt, there is a number. If you are farmer number 1, they will indicate this is farmer number 1. Farmer number 2, farmer number 2. Farmer number 3, farmer number 3. So when it comes to payments, we follow those numbers in the same chronological order, so that we don't have people complaining that I delivered as farmer number 100 but have been paid first. No, that would be disorganization. So we follow those numbers in chronological order so that we don't have any complaints. So that is where we are. And then administratively, we will try by all means to be as flexible as possible. We know quite all right that we are funded by government, and the funds we use are actually in the national budget. So we will try to work around and see how we can balance up these scenarios going forward, so that our farmers are not actually inconvenienced in any way. So the budgeting has already been done. What we are still working on right now is just perfecting the numbers and waiting for the crop forecast survey. In our plans also, we don't just bring these figures. We work with other government stakeholders to ensure that the right things, the fair things are done. So before the marketing season, you are aware that usually there's a crop survey announcement that is done by the Ministry of Agriculture. So once that is done, we look at what is being projected to be harvested, and then from there we start planning our numbers. How much maize are we going to get from there? How much maize is going to be left for the private sector? And then in addition to that, we also look at the storage space. We anticipate how much space do we have. Okay, and then we try to balance the two. If we don't balance the two, you know the consequences. Yeah.
Okay, so are there any plans to introduce or scale up digital platforms? As we know, we are in a digital age, for real-time tracking of deliveries, payments, stock levels, to increase transparency and maybe reduce administrative bottlenecks or pressures in a way.
Okay, so I did mention that technologically we are bringing on board new payment options.
Okay.
But also the payment options have got challenges. I did mention that from the 3 payment options that are available, farmers prefer one payment method, which is getting paid over the bank counters. Yes. Why do they prefer that? Because one is cheap. You are supposed to be given a 1 million for the maize delivered. You go to the bank, you'll be given a 1 million kwacha cash. If you get the other option of getting paid via mobile, you are given a 1 million in your mobile money account. You won't get that 1 million when you want to get the actual cash. Why? Because of the transactional cost. For each transaction that you conduct, the mobile network providers are getting a certain amount as a charge for that. So in the end, you see that you get less than the 1 million. So even the farmers, they've been very honest with us. They will tell us, no, me, I don't want to use mobile money because it wasn't charging. Okay, now if you're telling us to get paid over mobile money, how are you going to cover our transactional costs? So there are all these scenarios. But the good thing we're doing is we are giving them the options, and then we're also explaining the advantages of those options that are available.
Now, moving on to, I would say something that definitely for every single Zambian is listening, if you love eating shima, then this definitely will touch your heart. So now, does the FRA have any programs with millers, with grain traders, and even private buyers to stabilize maize or mini-meal prices? Because you touch our maize, our mini-meal price, you touch our hearts.
Yes, very true. And for us Zambians, I think majority of us, food in Zambia is equal to nshima.
Yes.
You give them rice, I didn't eat. Give them sample, they didn't eat. They want nshima. Yes. So yes, we do work with various stakeholders during various times. You remember during the time we had a drought. Again, we respond to what is prevailing. During that year, we came up with strategic response interventions, which enabled us to survive during that drought period. In addition to just importing maize, the maize that we bought from Tanzania, remember that we also introduced 2 critical programs. One, we had introduced a program that we were calling the Winter Maize Program. And then secondly, we also had introduced a program that we are calling the Early Maize Program. So these 2 programs required us to identify farmers that would grow maize throughout the year. The maize grown would be left to dry, after which the same would be delivered to FI for National Strategic Food Reserves. And then we were able to provide the same maize to the various government programs. So in addition to that, I think we had also introduced an intervention of buying maize, not only from small-scale farmers, but also we were buying maize from grain traders. There's an association in Zambia called the Grain Traders Association of Zambia, which is called the GTAZ in short. So we were able to buy maize from them during that period to ensure that we continue sustaining the national food security status. So usually you know that FRA is mainly buying stock from small-scale farmers. But because of the critical situation that we were in during that period, these interventions were brought on board to ensure that we sustain the food security of the nation. In addition, during that same year, there's a program that we call a millers program. This is a situation where if millers see that there is a short supply of maize on the local market, what would happen in a normal situation is they would source it from anywhere, and once they source it from anywhere, the price would be high. And the direct result of that maize price being high will be the milling meal price equally being increased. So if that is left to happen, we are going to find it very difficult to buy milling meal and feed our families. So government now created this program called the Millers Program, where there is great need for FRA to intervene. We would be given authority to start selling part of our national strategic food reserves to the millers at an economical price, so that once the maize is milled equally, the price for milling meal is going to be economical, and that would mean that we'll be able to buy the milling meal and feed our families. So during that critical year, we did do that. We engaged the millers, private sector. They came on board and were able to sell maize to them. They were able to do what they are required to do. Then, in addition to that, we did work perfectly with our millers. The situation was controlled. Then recently, you are aware that again, following what was happening on the local market, FRA again was given permission to engage Zambia National Service as well as the Zambia Correctional Services. These two government institutions have got milling plants. So we were directed to start selling maize to these so that they can supply and make available milling meal on the local market at affordable prices. And if you remember last year, majority of the Zambians were actually preferring to buy milling meal produced or manufactured by ZNS or Zambia Correctional Services, and they loved the taste of that milling meal brand. So when need arises, FRA being a strategic government institution is directed to step in on the local market and control the situation so that people don't die from hunger. So regularly we do that, and we make sure that families are fed following the implementation of those strategic government programs.
And now, as we get to wrap up this interview, going forward for all of those who might be listening or might be watching us, if they'd like to engage further with the FRA, find out updates, what can they do, where can they go to?
Okay, so firstly, we do interact with our clients via Facebook. I know that majority of us are on Facebook, so they can visit us on Food Reserve Agency. That's the name of our account. They can push in their feedback. They can email also at fra@fra.org.zm. We will quickly respond to their emails. Then we also have an X account, also Food Reserve Agency at FRA. They can interact with us there. When we have updates, we do stream online, we do post statements and speeches on these platforms. And then in addition, we also have a website where we have detailed information now on what we are doing and any other latest information. So our website is www.fra.org.zm. Once we are there, you'll be able to read various documents regarding our programs. And then we also have, for those that love watching productions or watching videos of various content, we also have a YouTube account where we post adverts, where we upload our documentaries, and other visual products, just for the information of the general public.
Okay, and on that note, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Chipandwe.
Thank you very much to you too, and I hope this interaction was very informing.
Yes, it was.
And I hope to be here again very soon.
Definitely.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Well, many thanks for coming through. We were joined in the studio by Mr. John Chipandwe, the Public Relations Coordinator for FRA, as we were discussing payment delays, storage capacity, logistic challenges, and concerns raised by farmers across the country, especially small-scale and vulnerable farmers. This has been Voice of the People. The Power Breakfast continues.
Voice of the People is a dynamic and interactive platform to voice their opinions on current affairs, social issues, and community concerns. With engaging discussions, expert insights, real-time audience participation. Voice of the People. Power. Everybody, hit after hit.